Okay, hi everybody. Today's video will be a second part of comparison. It will be about similarities between ancient Greek cultures and ancient Central American cultures. It seems that there is a great distance between them and that such connection couldn't exist there in such an early period. And in Greek general, there are no findings or historical information about such a connection, neither from tradition nor from the local residents who lived in these areas for many generations. And still, if you take a look at this pyramid with the Road of the Dead, this is a picture of Teotihuacan in Mexico, then you see a pyramid structure. Remind a little the pyramids in Egypt. All this leads to the desire to find out a little more about the place. Okay. So, introduction. Where to start? Let's start with the fact that during my research in the various places, I found different parameters for comparison between the American continent before the arrival of the Spaniards or the Vikings and ancient Greece. In the official academic approach, in the field of history and archaeology, they don't accept the possibility of such a connection. But why? What is the reason? Okay, this was a question. Let's find answer. In this video, I made a comparison with different parameters. First, we will see the comparison between Mesoamerica, South USA, Costa Rica, and ancient Greece from Mediterranean era. Okay, participants from the one side Mexico, South United States of America, Costa Rica, and from the other side West Turkey or South Turkey, Greece, Sicily, and a little Lazio. Okay, first parameter. In the parameter is transition to agriculture, as it was in Peru. According to research or researchers that were done, it was suggested that maize was domesticated in Mexico about 8,000 years ago. In other words, in Central America, there was a transition to agriculture more or less at the same time as in Turkey, Jordan, Syria, and India. When they have a transition to agriculture. Archaeologically, the earliest findings that could be real evidence for domestication were around 4200 BCE. It is about 6,200 years ago in Mexico. Also, tomatoes were first domesticated in Mexico, but the wild tomato originated in Peru or Colombia. Okay. To be honest, the reason why the ancient Mesoamericans started growing maize is not clear, but if you look more closely, then the transition to agriculture cultivation happened more or less at the same time as in Asia and the Fertile Crescent. Let's say, okay, we accept that the transition started in the Fertile Crescent, and from there it migrated eastward to the east. But then it is not clear how the spread reached Mesoamerica. It was a question, yes? This means that it means that a selected group of experts from the Fertile Crescent had to reach Central America. Or we have to accept the fact that both in Mexico and in ancient Greece, in our case, yes, the transition to agriculture happened independently. Okay. And you can see now we're going to Mediterranean era, and as I mentioned, in Peru about 7,000 years ago, the olive tree was domesticated in Tel Tzaf, not far from Beit Shean, today's Israel. And about 5,000 years ago, olives began to be grown on the island of Crete, from where it migrated to today's Greece. And also in the stories of ancient Greece, there was an olive tree, Moria. Also, they started to grow grapes. In other words, they have also a transition to agriculture, as I mentioned before. The second parameter is the transition, or more precisely, the discovery of copper and bronze. It should be mentioned here that there is a problem with getting the smelted copper suddenly. If we take a natural copper deposit, which is 99% copper, and throw it into a fire, we will not be able to get molten copper, because the melting temperature of copper is 1085 degrees, and the fire reaches a maximum of 850 or 900 degrees. But if we take copper ore, for example, in the form of compound with other materials, then in the smelting process, the copper is separated from other materials, and really a temperature of 850 degrees is enough. But there is a problem. In an open air fire, nothing will happen. You must make, as a minimum, some kind of pit, cover it, and leave a small hole to let air coming in. All this is to regulate the amount of carbon and oxygen that are needed. So those ancient people first had to make an oven, let's say, or use a suitable oven that existed, and only then discover the copper. In simple words, it is not a simple process. If you are looking for an accidentally story of discovering a copper. Okay, and despite everything I have said so far, copper began to be produced in ancient India, in Iraq, Syria, and even in Turkey, in a very ancient period, about 9,500 years ago. Later, copper or bronze moved to archaic Greece, but independently, copper or bronze began to be produced also in ancient Mexico. Okay, the emergence of smelted copper in pre-Columbian Mesoamerica occurred in West Mexico by roughly 800 to 600 CE. This is from the research. And you can see here in the picture, you can see a copper items that have undergone a melting process. Here in the picture you can already see bronze. Here another image of copper tools. But if we move to ancient Greece, then we will find the same or closely the same picture too. They also discover copper. This is a cutting tool from the Mykenæ Museum. Here you see griffins from the museum in Delphi. Here you also see all kinds of decorations. Here you see copper medical tools. This is from the museum in Epidaurus. This is also work tool from the museum in Agrigento. And these are tools from the archaeological site of Naxos, which is located in Sicily and belonged to the first Greeks who arrived in Sicily in the 8th century BC. Okay, and here the question arises. Why copper? In terms of strength, copper is a 3 on the Mohs scale, like limestone. But rocks like granite, andesite, and basalt are 6 up to 6.5 on the Mohs scale. So it doesn't help to replace the flint tool. But if you remember, the copper is antibacterial, which means that pot or plates and cookware that were made of copper were to kill all the bacteria. And much greater importance was regarding medical tools, where there is no need to explain why. For example, healing wounds. Okay, finally, we see that both in ancient Mexico and in ancient Greece, melted copper tools began to be produced. Now the third parameter, I called it many gods. Both in ancient Peru, in ancient Mexico and in ancient Greece, there were many gods, and some of them are also very similar. Here is, for example, a comparison table. You can see on the right side gods that were in Greece, and on the left side a similar gods in Mesoamerica, Mexico. Okay, let's see. For example, Chicomequatl, agricultural entity. Demeter, also agricultural entity. Sun god here and sun god there. Metzali, moon god. Selen, moon god. Sea god in Mexico and sea god in Greece. And also the god of night, sky or dark sky, and also the same god in Greece, Nyx. Okay, finally, it was a third parameter, many gods, and we're going to the fourth parameter. Fourth parameter is symmetry in construction. You can see here a symmetry, windows in the left and windows on the right side have the same. It is symmetrical to the gate, to the entrance gate or the entrance arc. You can see clearly that the left side with the windows and decorations is similar to the right side. Very remind structures from ancient Rome. And also here, this is from the site called Rio Bec. You can see clearly left side is symmetrical to the right side. The squares and the stairs, everything is the same relatively to the entrance. And now we are moved to Mediterranean era. This is a picture from Labraunda. Labraunda. This is a structure from ancient Greece, and you can see entrance and window from left side and window from the right side, and this is also a symmetry. This is another picture from Alinda. This tower called Tower U1 in the city wall. It made from granite. And you can see the window in the center, or some entrance with the window, and some small windows and niches, both in the left side and on the right side. So you can see clearly there was a symmetry. Now we're going to the fifth parameter. I called it building or stepped arc. Building an entrance in the form of stepped roof. There is an identical geometric idea here, and there is an identical view here. It can also be a parameter for comparison between the Aztecs and the Etruscans during the Archaic period. I will remind you, Etruscans, this is Lazio. And here another picture of some kind of stepped arc. And now we will going to the Etruscan tombs in Italy, and we can see the same idea or the same approach. It's smaller, but you can see this is the same. Okay. Now we are going to the sixth parameter. I called it animals on wheels. These animals on wheels received the interpretation toys. But why? Very simply, because they are similar to our toys today. But could there be another possibility? For example, this is a question. If we talk about toys, then toys are a model of something more real in everyday's life. For example, a toy of a car is a model of a car that drives on a real road. But the Olmecs and had no cars and even no carts or wagons. So where did toys suddenly come from? You can see I published here, you can see the date. It is between 2,500 years ago to 3,000 years ago. So this is, if we make parallels, it will be, if we talk about Greece, it will be the period of archaic Greece. It's even not Roman or Hellenistic. It could be only from archaic Greece. And I will show you why in a few minutes. But let's continue. Some people who think that those were really toys say something like this. For example, I managed to read it, yes. The Olmecs came to ability, be able to use the wheel, but because they didn't have suitable animals to pull carts, they did not develop the concept of animal carts. Another problem was the lack of roads suitable for the use of carts. Okay, what do I think? Those arguments are actually, if you look at the whole picture, from our time today. But how could simple Indians at that time, ancient time, know what the conditions needed to be for the idea of the wagons or carts to succeed? Okay? They didn't have to test animals. They could try pulling carts with human power, for example. This too would have improved the locals' ability to move large weights. Okay? Arguments about the roads, what about them? Yes? My answer. Then it is enough to look at the road of the dead people. And I will show you in a few moments. Okay, here you can see very famous animals on wheels from the Museum of Anthropology in Mexico. Here is another finding from this era. This is another example. Okay, here you can see already a road, and not just a dirt road. In the picture in front of you, you can see clearly the size of the people and the size of the road and the quality of the road. And there are another examples in Mexico. So the argument that they didn't have roads, I think not correct. So, the conclusion, yes, the conclusion is coming out that animals on wheels are something disconnected from the local development. But on the same time, the animals themselves are local. Moreover, animals at that time were sacred. Imagine, yes, for example, that the head of the tribe comes in and sees a child playing with a man and saint God, rolling him on the floor. You can imagine, yes, the situation will be ended with a tragedy. But what other options could be? For example, animals were associated with stars and space. This is also a fact. I mean, animals could be something astronomical. But the question arises, why wheels? Stars rotates, or more accurate, the Earth rotates and the stars rotate relative to it. The spiral galaxies also rotates and the stars rotates with them. Therefore, wheels can characterize circular motion. Okay. Now we will move to ancient Greece. And you can see the same idea. Animal on wheel. Here you can see an animal on wheels from southern Italy, a period of archaic Greece. It's maybe some bull. And here you can see a horse from about 9,000 and 2,900 years ago from Greece. Okay. Seventh parameter is mosaic idea. Here you can see a mosaic from ancient Maya. These green stones are turquoise. And here you can see example of mosaic. And you can see also a red color. This is the idea of mosaic on the mask. And this is another picture of mosaic in the style of mask. Okay, this is very famous picture, two-headed serpent, and these green stones are turquoise. But look at the gums. The gums are red. This is, in my opinion, this is an evidence that this is a mosaic idea. They didn't paint the stones. They used different stones with different colors. This is a mosaic idea. Okay, now we're moving to ancient Greece. And you can see a mosaic from an ancient Greece, archaic period. This is another picture. And here you can see. This is also a picture of a mosaic from archaic period. This is from the 4th century BCE. Okay, now we're going to the 8th parameter. I called it gemstone. Gemstone beads on a string or in the form of necklace. Using gems like nifrit, you can see the number 6 to 6.5 according to the Mohs scale, and jadid 6.5 to 7 according to Mohs scale, and they require the use of appropriate tools. For simple beads, you need simple tools and simple work methods. However, for complex beads, you need complex tools and complex work methods. And you can see same technology and you will see that there are same technologies also were used in ancient Greece. Okay, what you can see here on the picture. In the picture you can see beads from the Maya period. This is nifrit, also from the left side and also from the right side. Here you can see another example from the tomb of Palenque. Here it's a close-up. Here I want to add that some beads are in the shape of a cylinder. All this had to be drilled. This means that the Mayans had to develop drilling technologies. Just with a stone in your hands, you cannot get such results with nifrit. And here, an example of drilling. On the left side, the hole is not quite symmetrical, but on the other hand, on the right side, you can see that the hole is symmetrical and the surface quality is also very strong and polished. Now we will move to the Mediterranean era or Mediterranean basin. Here you can see beads of red carnelian, red carnelian, yes, this is how the scholars pronounce it, and light purple agate in the shape of melons. Look, yes, what a good job. This is already a time when drilling technologies were known. Here some pictures from the Archaeological Museum in Athens. You can see a mark with yellow with yellow circles. This is beads from that made from carnelian but also from amethyst in a purple, yes, color. Amethyst is a 7 on the Mohs scale. It is more or less the strength of quartz or flint. Here already in the Mycenaean period, emery was probably used. It is a type of corundum with a strength of 8 to 9 according to the Mohs scale. And then question arises, and what abrasive the ancient Maya used? Okay, this is also questions that come up when you looking on the situation. Here one example of beads from amethyst. Here is another example. And I want to mention that external form also had to be done. In nature, it doesn't appear in this shape and quality. Here I gave an example from ancient Bulgaria, right on the border with Greece. It placed there. This is because you can see that nifrit or jadid was also used here, just like in Mesoamerica. The same color and the same mineral. Okay, another thing I wanted to mention, 3 technologies were in Again's drillings. It's according to a research. Stone drill, copper cylinder with abrasive, and perforation. But here what is important to emphasize, in order to create cylinders, those ratio between length and diameter that is approximately 1 to 7, you need to use a copper cylinder with abrasive technology, which is already a technological invention. But it turns out that both in the Mediterranean basin and in Mexico there was probably the same technology. Okay, let's move on to 9th parameter. I called it waves. 2 waves which twist like braids. They are called galosh in the professional language. The shape can be found in almost every ancient Roman mosaic as a frame. It should be mentioned here that in nature snakes mate in this way, but we saw that snakes and waves had the same meaning. So maybe here there wasn't imitation of the snakes in the nature having intimate relationships, maybe something else. Maybe there was another idea here. But what? For example, maybe related to the movement of photons around us. Maybe, yes? Okay, let's continue with comparison. Here in the picture, you can see galosh. I marked a circle in red. Inside this ellipse, you can see clearly. Here, this is a picture from the field that was for ball game. The Mayans played some game with a ball. It is from Chichen Itza. 2 snakes that together form a galosh shape. Here this is a picture of snakes on the left and right sides forming a galosh shape. It is from a Mayan culture. Here a form of galosh is seen as part of decoration on pottery. It is from Mayan culture also. Here, this is a picture of a plate from Aztec culture. You can see also the galosh. Okay, here too, the galosh is from Aztec culture. Beneath the legs of this bird. Okay, here I wanted to expand a bit to the geography of the findings. You can see a picture of galosh from Costa Rica. Here another example from Costa Rica. And there is also a rare example from North America. Okay, now we will move to the Mediterranean basin. Okay, here is the picture you see. Here in the picture you can see a galosh on pottery from western Turkey. This is from Izmir Archaeological Museum. Here you can see a galosh on a sarcophagus, also from western Turkey, and also in the same museum. Here you can see a galosh from Delphi, which belongs to the ancient Greece. Here you can see galosh on Mycenaean pottery. This is Mycenaean Museum. And here too you can see galosh on Mycenaean pottery, also in the same place. And here you see galosh on Etruscan pottery, ancient Greek style. Here you can see a galosh on the arm of Gorgona. I know I repeat the pictures from the video from Peru. Okay, and now we are going to 10th parameter. This is a very special parameter also. I repeat as it was in the video in Peru, about Peru. This is a very special parameter because it is the one that changed the overall picture for me and brought me to the understanding that in ancient times there was an understanding of the universe that surrounds us. Here you can see waves twisting in the shape of the Latin letter S in the ears of this dragon's head, called a feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl. Okay, here you can see more examples of twisting in the shape of the Latin letter S. Here you can see another example, a little different, with an S sweet twist, yes? Here I have added some examples from southern United States of America cultures, Arizona district. Yes, they belonged to Central America before the arrival of the Spaniards. You can see S-shaped twists in the four corners of the pottery. Here you can see such twists that are connected like a chain, just as it was with a Minoan culture, and we will see it. Another example is with Hajj. You can see in the white color twist with the shape of a Latin letter S. And this is an example that is exactly the same as it was and what we can see with the Minoan culture. Take a time to look and to remember. And now we are moving to Greece. In the picture in front of us, you can see a single wave which with a twist in the shape of the letter S. This is a find from the Sesklo culture about 7,000 years ago. Here you see finds of a single wave from the Mycenaean culture. The twist here is in the form of a channel. I mean, there is a thin part that is prominent and a thick part that penetrates inside. In fact, the part that penetrates, or the channel, how you call it, is actually the shape that has a twist in the center in the form of the Latin letter S. Here you see a sequence of waves with a twist in the shape of letter S also. It is from Mycenaean culture. Unlike the previous picture, there is here it is reversed and the thin part is twisted in the shape of the letter S in the center. And this is an example from museum in Delphi. Here we see an example that is very similar to what we saw in previous video about Peru. Here you see waves that twist in the shape of the letter S in the center and have a design of spikes in the shape of triangles, very similar to what we have seen in the Moon Temple, which belongs to the Moche culture. Okay. Here you also see a sequence of such waves. It is from Minoan culture. You can see how it's similar to the Native Americans. Yes. Okay. Now, for a moment of thought again, as in the previous time, here you can see some kind of scene with a chariot attached to a wheel, a figure sitting inside the chariot, and a horse pulling all together, and everything is aimed at some character. But it should be noted that this whole scene takes place around twisted waves, with a twist in the shape of the Latin letter S. If you dive deeper into the scene, then you can see that the wheel of the chariot is actually sun cross. It doesn't matter if this cross is the earth or the sun. What matters is that this scene is planetary scene and take place in space. Then the question arises, what waves are there in the space? That they have a twist in the center in the shape of the Latin letter S. This picture will maybe give us an answer. You can see on the left side waves from the Mycenaean period, and on the right side waves which received the modern name gravitational waves. And it's like in the story of Little Red Riding Hood. If it looks like a wolf and it sounds like a wolf, then it's probably a wolf. Or, in our case, if it looks like gravitational waves and it's found where gravitational waves should be, then it's probably gravitational waves. And here too, it could be a coincidence or maybe not. Okay, parameter number 11. I called it for short chessboard. This parameter is more interesting. Sometimes when someone says both here and there they drew trees, then scholars will say there are trees around both here and there, and this is the reason why we see similarity. Very simple, yes? But there is no chessboard in nature. So where did the ancient people get the common idea of drawing a chessboard on jugs, plates, and other pottery in such an early period? And here you can see a chessboard as part of decorative design of the plate from the Mayan culture, ancient Maya. Yes, here too you can see a chessboard on the plate from the Central American culture. Here another example from Central America. Here another example from Central America, and I called it the flag of the United States. It's remind me, yes? Very interesting picture, yes? Okay, now we will move to the Mediterranean basin. Here you can see some ruins with a design in the shape of a chessboard from archaic Greece. This is in a museum of Delphi. This is another interesting picture. Here on the left side you can see a design in the shape of a chessboard, and on the right side a similar design on the plate. These items are from cultures that are about 7,000 years ago, Dmini and Sesklo. Here you can see a piece of pottery with a chessboard design on it. It is from the Museum of Agrigento. And here you can see a chessboard shaped design on the top of the jug. Here you can see a chessboard shaped design from Etruscan tomb. Okay, now we are going to parameter number 12. Various designs with an equal armed cross. Here you can see something left from a Maya codex I marked this symbol in red, something like a cross with circles or dots in the four corners. This shape is called Lamate symbol and represent the planet Venus. 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 Here you can see another part of Mayan codex. What is depicted here was copied from an ancient source that no longer exists. In any case, you can see I marked in red something like an equal armed cross, enclosed in a circle, and 4 points in the four corners. Here you can see an equal armed cross decorating the pottery. No. Here you can see an equal armed cross enclosed with a circle. This is from a Mayan temple found at the Museum of Anthropology in Mexico. Here you can see an equal armed cross decorating the pottery. Here on the cheeks you can see an equal armed cross inside the circles and 4 dots in the four corners. I marked in yellow circle. Here you can see a cross inside the plate and 4 creatures in 4 corners. And here too an equal armed cross with dots in the 4 corners. It is from the Aztec culture. And now we will move to the Mediterranean era. And here in a picture from the museum in Izmir, Western Turkey, you can see a cross with square dots in the 4 corners. Here you can see another pottery from the museum in Izmir, Western Turkey. I marked in red and you can see more than 20 crosses, visible crosses, enclosed in the rectangular or maybe circular shapes and dots in 4 parts or 4 corners. Here is a pottery vessel on the lid of which an equal armed cross was drawn with dots in the 4 corners. Here you see another idea just like it was in Mexico. A small thin cross as a decoration. And here a cross from Minoan culture 3,250 years ago. Okay, parameter number 13. A cross like Chacana in Peru. Here in the picture on the left as well as on the right you can see a stepped cross, and inside and here instead of a circle with dot in the middle there is an eye like it was in Peru. If you look at the figure's chest on the left you can see stepped joints. If you look at the chest of the figure on the right, you can see white steps on a brown background. Okay? Okay. Okay, now we will move to the Greece. About 7,000 years ago, here you can see exactly the same stepped cross. A circle in the middle. On the right side you can see stepped connections, as was case with the chest of the figure on the left side from previous picture. Here you can see white stairs on a brown background. This is from the culture of Sesklo in a museum of Athens. Okay, 14 parameter, reincarnation. Okay, the Maya believed that the soul is bound to the body at birth. Only death or sickness can part the body and the soul, with death being the permanent parting. To them there was an afterlife that the soul reaches after death. The Mayans believed in reincarnation. In the work Popol Vuh, Maize god retreats to the underworld and with two hero twins battling the monsters and lords of the place, makes way back to the earth world. Okay, he is reborn again, dies, and on and on and on, and the cycle continues like reincarnation. In classical Greece, Plato, Pythagoras, and Socrates believed in reincarnation. 500 BCE. It is 2,500 years ago, before now. Now we are going to the 15th parameter, and maybe the last. I called it flood. In the Mayan story from the book Popol Vuh, there were some creations of humans. In one of them, the wood people were created. The gods create a flood then and destroyed the wood people. Those who survived turned into monkeys. It is interesting because we find monkeys here. It is a long before Darwin. Maya flood stories documented by Diego de Landa and Chelam Belam of Hummel hold that the only survivors of the flood were the four Bacabs, yes, who took their place as holders of the four corners of the sky. And also there is stories called Five Suns. In an Aztec story about how the world was created, it says that there were four other suns before our own, because different gods served as the sun at different times. And here you see the list. What is interesting to read to you, for you, I would like to read for you. The fourth son was Chalchuktikui, who loved humans very much, but Tezcatlipoca told her she was selfish and she started crying. causing a flood that killed everyone on earth. So we are familiar here with flood. And now if we go to Greece, it is also a story about a flood, very known. One of them, Zeus or Zeus, by a heavy rain from heaven flooded the greater part of Greece, so that all men and women were destroyed, except a few who fled to the high mountains. But the Olecon and Pyrrha, floating in the chest over the sea, they floated for 9 days and 9 nights, and they reached Parnassus. Okay, and in the end, I will not continue with reading. They throw stones that Pyrrha thrown become women, and what the Helicon throw become men. So we have a story about flood also in ancient Greece and also in Mesoamerica. They are a little different. There is no chest or boat in Mesoamerica, but we have the story about flood. Okay, 16th parameter, ancient astronomy. Both in ancient Greece and from the Mayan Codex, we find that in both places they studied the planet Venus and the eclipse of the moon. This is a picture you can see, very famous. It's called Antikythera mechanism. Is an ancient analog calculating machine which was discovered on the sea near the Greek island of Antikythera between Kythera and Crete and is named after him. This mechanism dates from the period between 150 and 100 BC and was apparently built. Scholars think so, yes? Or never mind. And was apparently built to calculate astronomical positions of celestial bodies and eclipses. And the question arises, where are the measurements or where are the tools from Mesoamerica that related to the Maya? Good question, yes? Okay, conclusion. So what we get? It could be a possibility that the Indians from Mesoamerica sailed to Mediterranean basin. This possibility is weak. There is a possibility that they sailed to Mesoamerica from the Mediterranean era. Okay, before the arrival of Spanish, there were Vikings. But Vikings didn't come to Mesoamerica. There are alternative suggestions heard from many and for many years that the Romans reached the America continent. In general, such a thing could be, why not? But the option with the Romans is a bit problematic. Why? We saw a stepped arc and an entry gates at Labna. In all of them, the arc was not round. It was at a stepped or sharp angle shape. And such an angle can be seen in ancient Greece, and also with the animals on wheels. They were from archaic period. So maybe Greeks reached America. In general, as in the case of the Romans, a task that could be carried out also. But as I mentioned in Peru video, in archaic Greece, they grew olives, grapes, and wheat, and in Mexico they started growing maize. In Mexico we saw that there was a meditation position, and in Greece wasn't, etc. So here I made a conclusion slide. Let's read. I will not read all the slide, but you can see that on the one hand, you can see a connection between two places. But on the other hand, there is also a difference. And you can see, already have seen 60 parameters. Solution. To suggest something, first of all, you have to understand that the picture that is created is that on the one hand you see a common ground or base, and on the other hand a difference between the two cultures, ancient Greece and Mexico. Before the arrival of Spaniards, a possible solution to the problem. Those who laid the foundations of those cultures had a common technological, artistic, and physical sources. Where can you find such a situation in historical sources? In my opinion, Book of Genesis. In the Old Testament, in chapter 10, it is said that after the flood, each of the groups dispersed to different places, with one of the groups being called Peleg, means splitting or sailing in English. Peleg's brother name was Yucatan, just like in Mexico, the Yucatan Peninsula. Okay, similar sounds and similar names can always be, but after I had found about 60 parameters for comparison and about 20 parameters last time with Peru, I think that such idea can definitely be taken seriously. In chapter 11, a story is told about the Tower of Babel. It is written there that everyone dispersed to their own place with their own language, and this was during the time of Peleg. Hence, the similarity in ideas, technological and physical similarity. But because these were not all the groups, then we also see differences. Because it is possible that some ideas could be shared by Mexico with India, for example, and some ideas could be shared by ancient Greece with Egypt only. Okay, this video came to the end. I appreciate you very much, and we will meet together in the next video. It will be comparison between ancient India and the whole America, Mesoamerica and Peru together. I wish you a good luck and a peaceful night. Goodbye.